A one-size-fits-all approach to nutrition advice isn't the best way to improve people's health. The new technologies to analyse the data, like AI, machine learning, to then predict how one individual versus another individual will respond to food. People who eat more ultra-processed food tend to have worse health. I would really advocate reducing your meat intake. At the age of 40 is, I think, a really valuable point in time at which we can take stock of our diet and we can have a significant impact on increasing what we call our health span.
Dr. Sarah Berry has joined us. Sarah is, among other things, and she's also a friend of mine, she's the Associate Professor in the Department for Nutrition Sciences at King's College in London, and she's also the Chief Scientist at the health science company Zoe. Sarah, thanks for taking the time to have a chat.
Pleasure. I have never done an interview whilst moving.
Well, there we go.
This is a first for me, and I've done lots.
Well, I know, I like it. It's our USP. So we're going to talk about the vital contribution that diet makes to ageing. Clearly, you're an expert when it comes to nutrition and research around that. Can you just give us a little bit of background about your career and why we should listen to what you've got to say?
Wow.
Come on, explain yourself.
So I've been in the research area of nutrition sciences for 25 years. I've got a PhD in nutritional sciences, specifically looking at the impact that diet has on cardiometabolic disease. And cardiometabolic disease refers to all of those diseases that become more and more prevalent as we age. Type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, etc. And then the last 6 years I've also had a really fun role leading all of the science at Zoe, the healthcare tech company.
Yes, tell us about Zoe.
Yeah, so Zoe are a healthcare tech company that formed with the purpose of generating personalised nutrition advice on the basis that we are all different. Our biology is so different, how we respond to food is so different. How you respond to food versus how I respond to food, there's like a 20-fold difference. Our lifestyle's really different, how fast you eat your food, what time of day you eat your food.
Yep.
Our food preferences are all different. And so we recognise that a one-size-fits-all approach to nutrition advice isn't the best way to improve people's health. So we at Zoe have been working to first understand how much variability is there in our responses to food.
Yeah.
What causes this variability? So why are you so different to me? Is it your age? Not saying that you're older than me. Is it because you're male, I'm female? What causes all of this variability? And then once we can understand all of that, we can then use new technologies to collect data, new technologies to analyse the data, like AI, machine learning, to then predict how one individual versus another individual will respond to food, and therefore deliver personalised dietary advice, lifestyle advice that is really tailored to the individual, but not just their biology, tailored to how they live their life as well.
So interesting. And that, obviously, what you've described there applies to all ages, but we're here to specifically talk about aging, or people when they've gone beyond 40 and 50.
Yep.
We do workouts that help people stay fit and stay active as they get older. So what are the dietary considerations or the nutritional considerations for us as we age?
So I think that actually for most people, the dietary considerations for whether you're above 40, older than 50 or in your 20s are actually the same.
Right.
There are some things that change, but there's commonalities for
Sure.
everyone. I think what's actually important to think about is that at the age of 40 is, I think, a really valuable point in time at which we can take stock of our diet and we can have a significant impact on increasing what we call our health span, the healthy number of years that we have. And I think up until the 40s, you can kind of get away with maybe not exercising so much, maybe not eating so well. But once you hit your 40s, that's when it really starts to take a toll. And so the basic principles of eating healthy that would apply throughout. Have plenty of fibre, have a diversity, have plant-based foods, reduce ultra-processed food intake, limit your alcohol intake, don't eat excess calories. There's no kind of magic advice that suddenly pops up just because you're 40, but just like there's no magic dietary advice or no silver bullet anyway to eating healthily.
Okay. Nevertheless, as you say, you're right. You get to a certain point in your life and you go, the things that I was doing at 20 and 30, they have a greater impact, hangovers happen, etc., etc., waistlines expand. So you talked about your background, and you referenced metabolism, or the kind of changes in our metabolism. It is widely understood, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that as one gets older, one's metabolism slows down. That is a fact, right?
Yeah, so it doesn't have to, though. So there's lots of facts out there that we can actually control. So what we do know is it's different for different sexes.
Right.
So what we do know for both sexes, males and females, what happens is as you age, generally your muscle mass reduces, your fat mass increases, the metabolic rate or how you metabolize food differs depending on the ratio of your fat to your muscle mass. So your metabolic rate tends to reduce because of this difference in muscle and fat mass.
So what can we do about any of those things? You talked about, there are some things, and you talked about muscle, and one can, and we refer to on the channel here about strength and flexibility as well as cardiovascular fitness. So are you saying, I think you are, that more muscle reduces the likelihood or reduces the decline of your metabolism? Is that the sort of headline?
So for women reaching the perimenopausal age, so that's around the age of 45, on average women go through menopause at 51, and I know this won't be relevant to a lot of males listening, but for any females listening, that's a really critical point in time at which to make sure you are doing weight-bearing exercises, resistant exercise, you're maintaining your muscle mass. Same applies for men. It's less of a kind of sudden change that happens for females with the menopause. It's more of a gradual change.
Yeah.
But it's really important to maintain that muscle mass, prevent the build-up of adipose tissue, so fat tissue, but most importantly, maintaining that muscle mass.
Okay. So strength is important. We have been getting that right, at least.
As you get older, the evidence shows actually that strength training, resistance training, building muscle becomes more important in terms of longevity and health span, so your healthy years, than actually aerobic cardiovascular exercise.
Very interesting. You talk a lot within the Zoe project, and I have to confess I'm doing it at the moment, and I'll let you have a look and find out what that means. I'm enjoying it very much, and it's telling me things about my glucose levels, again, which I have never sought to find out before. But another thing that seems to be referenced a lot in the Zoe project or something that's talked about, is the gut microbiome.
When we talk about the microbiome, we're talking about the trillions of bacteria that live in our gut. Now, all different parts of our body have a microbiome. There's the oral microbiome that you might start seeing adverts on TV about.
Right.
There's the skin microbiome that I know lots of commercial companies are getting, on the bandwagon of selling creams based on that. But the area that's been researched the most is your gut microbiome. And so this is in your lower gut, called your colon. And we have trillions of bacteria that differ between each and every individual person. And they have a really important role in controlling loads of different areas related to our health, from our mental health, our cardiovascular health, our digestion, there's associations with risk of obesity, diabetes, etc. And what we know is that we can modify the composition of our microbiome through our diet. So our microbes need to eat. They eat on undigested food that reaches them. The food that's undigested is fibre. And that's why fibre is so important in relation to health, because fibre is not digested by us, but it provides this feast for our microbiome. So they have a party when we're having high fibre foods. What it does is it increases the prevalence of what we call good gut species, and these good gut species are the species that are associated with favourable health measures. So lower obesity, better mental health, lower risk of cardiovascular disease. If, however, you're not feeding them with the good food and you're eating a very unhealthy diet, the bad bacteria grow. And these bad bacteria produce chemicals that we know have an unfavourable effect.
I have also read things, because intermittent fasting is a thing that is kind of a reasonably hot topic at the moment, and again I sometimes indulge in a little bit of skipping breakfast anyway. It's not exactly fasting, but and I've been reading something that suggests that intermittent fasting can promote brain health.
Yeah, so I'm going to use a term that scientists use all the time, I'm afraid, which is it's an emerging area of evidence.
There we go.
There is, no science. Science isn't perfect science, and it's not an exact science, but this is an area that I think is really exciting. And it fits in with this whole area that I'm really excited around, which is how you eat. that people haven't thought about before. And by how you eat, I mean how fast you eat your foods, the time of day you eat your foods.
It's a hot topic for me. I eat terribly fast.
Oh, okay. I can tell you some interesting bits about why you should slow down in a minute. But time-restricted eating, intermittent fasting is another area. It's like another tool in your toolbox, I think, to improve your health. I don't think there's concrete evidence related to the link between intermittent fasting and the many health outcomes that are proclaimed about it. What we do know is that if you practice the kind of intermittent fasting called time-restricted eating, because there's different types of intermittent fasting. There's the intermittent fasting like the 5-2 diet, where for 5 days you limit your calories, then for 2 days you go crazy. Or there's time-restricted eating, which is the most studied form and the most easy, I think, to apply day to day in your life. Time-restricted eating means eating within a particular eating window. So trying to eat within an 8 or 10 hour eating window. So that means when you have your first meal and your last meal of the day. And what we know is that if you practice time-restricted eating, you have improved metabolic health. So we know that you have reduced inflammation. We know that you will, without consciously thinking about it, on average reduce your energy intake by about 300 calories. And so the benefits of improved metabolic health, reduced inflammation, maintaining a healthy body weight are far-reaching, one of which is on your mental health and on your cognition. There is quite a bit of evidence also to show that time-restricted eating impacts your immune health, which again is all linked with cognition, it's linked with cancer. But I would caveat that a little bit with saying, let's watch this space.
Okay. I mean, certainly I've done it, and it's certainly you eat less, so you lose weight, or you stay in the right shape.
Yeah, I mean, Dom, we did a study last year in 150,000 people as part of the Zoe Health studies, where we asked people to practice time-restricted eating against the noisy way they live their lives, because there's all of these great clinical trials that get people to reduce to a 6 hour eating window. I don't know about you, but there's no...
That's hard, yeah,
I'm
that's
not
hard.
eating in a 6
No,
hour
that's
eating
hard,
window.
I'm starving.
So we said, okay, do a 10 hour eating window, which I think is feasible for most people. That's like having your first meal at your breakfast at 10, I need to do my maths here, and your dinner at 8.
Yes.
That's quite feasible for most people.
Yeah.
We saw that in those people, even though they were only doing it in a 10 hour eating window, and we told them don't change anything else, do it however you want, carry on eating whatever you want, but eat just in a 10 hour eating window. They had improvements in alertness, so it was impacting their mental kind of clarity. They had improvements in energy, they had improvements in mood, and they had a reduction in hunger.
Well, I would say that I've experienced the same thing. However, my current regime is also includes not drinking any alcohol, and I think we all I've done that for 2 weeks.
I didn't know that.
We all know that changes things, and I mean, kind of obviously, doesn't it?
I think as well is when we're thinking about how we eat and time-restricted eating, I think something really important to think about is the timing of this. And this is where I think there is good evidence. There's good evidence to show if you are eating late in the evening, so you're eating outside of your normal body clock. So we know every cell in our body has its own clock, and we call this circadian biology.
Right.
And what we know is if you eat outside of being in line with your body clock, that it has unfavourable impacts on your health. So what we know is for time-restricted eating, if you practice early, and I know you said you skip breakfast, if you practice it early, i.e. you can have your breakfast, but you finish your evening meal earlier, that's where you get the most benefits.
Okay.
And there's quite good evidence emerging now that if you're eating after 8 in the evening, you have worse blood glucose control, you have actually increased hunger the next day for those eating late, you have worse overall metabolic control, and you tend to be have a higher BMI, so higher body fat, etc.
Yes.
And so I think one good tip is to say to people, try if you can to stop eating at 8 in the evening, and that will have a...
Yeah, well, I'm doing that. That is it.
I can't do that. Well done.
Well, yeah, I try to go to bed early. That's one of the secrets I do, which is rather sad. But anyway, there's another thing that is very high in the mix at the moment, and it's talk about ultra-processed foods, which I know is a subject you're especially interested in. I also read that there is some links between overeating of ultra-processed food and dementia. Is that? I mean, I know ultra-processed food have lots of question marks over them, but is there a link to dementia, do you think?
Yeah, so ultra-processed food, again, is another hot topic. Every single day there's a new study coming out about ultra-processed food. Many of these studies are what we call association studies. So they're studies where at one point of time it's looking at how much ultra-processed food this population eats versus the occurrence of particular diseases.
Okay.
What's very clear from these population studies, these association studies, is people who eat more ultra-processed food tend to have worse health. Cancer, cardiovascular disease, dementia, diabetes, obesity. I mean, the links are becoming, every day there's a new link with a new disease. The problem is that there isn't what we call clinical trial data to support this very well. And so that's what we need to see before we start making very clear interpretations from this. What we do know, though, is that most ultra-processed food out there contains more unhealthy nutrients. It contains less healthy nutrients. It tends to contain less fibre, less of the kind of bioactives like polyphenols, which are really good for us. It also tends to contain emulsifiers, additives, which we know may impact our gut microbiome. But interestingly as well, we eat ultra-processed food really fast. Now, you said you were a fast eater.
Really fast.
We actually eat ultra-processed food compared to nutritionally matched unprocessed food 50% more quickly. So what happens is you're eating this ultra-processed food, it's not reaching the part of your gut that tells you you're full before you've actually finished eating it, so you'll overeat. So if you take an orange, for example, this is a really simple example, it takes you a certain amount of time to eat a whole orange, but to drink the equivalent juice, and I mean if you'd have put it in your own liquidizer, it's like in half the time, and your body's not told you you're full yet. So it's encouraging that overeating, overconsumption of calories.
Another thing is apparently a good idea as you get older is to reduce the amount of animal fat, meat that one eats, and replace it with vegetables, with plants. And I mean, again, is that I know that probably is true of all ages, but it sounds to me like that's particularly pertinent when you get past the age of 40.
Yeah, so I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword because, yes, you're right, we should all be reducing our intake of animal fat, animal foods, dairy, meat, because of global warming. So for kind of planetary health reasons, we should be reducing it. For biological health reasons, yes, we should be reducing particularly heavily processed animal-based food products, without a doubt. At any age, we should be reducing it. As you get older, you have increased tendency to increase your blood pressure, your cholesterol, etc. So your metabolism is changing. And therefore, we need to be reducing our intake of animal-based saturated fat. So it's one of the kind of harmful nutrients in animal-based foods that we should be reducing as we get older as a way of making sure our cholesterol doesn't increase. The problem is, though, is that we need to make sure we're maintaining a healthy intake of the kind of nutrients that we do find in meat. So whether it be iron, whether it be protein, for example. So I would really advocate, at any age, reducing animal-based food, reducing your meat intake. But you've got to be really sensible about what you're swapping it with. And I think as you age, we know that your protein requirements increase a little bit, not loads. And so therefore, you need to make sure that you're being sensible about swapping it with protein-rich plant-based foods.
Right. I'm going to put you on the spot then, because you've given a huge amount.
I don't know anything about protein.
No, not about protein particularly. No,
you can ask me anyway.
But about kind of, you clearly have a huge array of knowledge around what we should and shouldn't be eating. And much of that is especially pertinent to people when they get past the age of 40 for all sorts of reasons. What would you say, going through a day, would be, I'm not asking you to come up with a full recipe necessarily, or, it doesn't have to be a la carte. But
I don't do the cooking in our house.
Well, I know. You know about food, but someone else does the cooking.
Yeah.
But what would you say would be like going, on a normal day, what should one have for breakfast, lunch and tea in the course of a day to, promote healthy aging?
Yeah, okay. I would start by saying really focus on what's the easiest to change, which is breakfast and snacks. We know that breakfast accounts on average for 20% of our energy. Snacks on average account for 25% of our energy.
Right.
We've had research published, that we've done, that shows that nearly half of people who have really healthy main meals actually have really unhealthy snacks, yet they account for a quarter of our energy.
Wow, yeah.
And snacks and breakfast are under our individual control. So I'm a mum. What I eat for my dinner is dictated by either what my husband's cooking or what my kids like.
Yeah.
My snacks and my breakfast is under my control, and that's accounting for nearly half of my calories. So I would suggest to anyone, start by thinking about having a really healthy start to the day, with your breakfast, but also think about what you're going to snack on throughout the day. And starting your day with a meal that has a mix of protein, healthy fats and fibre is a great start.
So eggs.
Eggs, avocado, full fat Greek yogurt, kefir, nuts, seeds, fruit, etc.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say is I would definitely step away from having highly refined carbohydrates, so cereals, bagels, toast. And the reason is because if you have highly refined carbohydrates, you have really big peaks in blood sugar. And you'll be picking that up, for example, with your monitor that you're wearing.
Yeah.
But what our research shows is that you have a dip 2 to 4 hours after in your circulating blood glucose. And our research shows once you have that dip, you go on to eat your next meal about half an hour sooner. You go on to eat about 320 calories more over the day if you have a breakfast that causes you to have a dip versus the next day having a breakfast that isn't high in refined carbohydrates, that you don't get that dip. And so what you want to do is start your day not by going on a roller coaster like that throughout the day. You want to start your day calmly and smoothly in terms of your metabolism.
Yeah.
So high fibre, high protein, high in healthy fats. You can have some carbs in there, just don't go crazy on them. Then I think thinking about how you like to eat. I'm a snacker, a grazer. I can't go more than 2 hours without food. Some other people only want 2 meals a day. So again, make it work for how your hunger signals are telling you whether you're hungry. Listen to your body, listen to how you feel. If you like snacks, again, go for protein, fat-based snacks, nuts, eggs, all of these kind of things are great snacks if you're at home and they're easily accessible. For lunch, I think that just choose, again, a meal that's balanced with plenty of fibre, plenty of diversity, and this is really important, is to think about making sure that throughout the day you're getting a diversity of different plant-based foods. And so, there's hundreds of different kinds of lunches.
Sure.
As I'm not the chef, I'm not.
No, you've given a good amount of detail there, I'd say.
And then for dinner, I think the evidence shows that as the day progresses, we become less insulin sensitive, so we process our carbohydrates less effectively. So I would say for dinner, try and avoid having a really high refined carbohydrate, again, because we know that we process it less effectively. Try to have it before 8 o'clock in the evening. So focus on, again, plant-based proteins, healthy oils, etc. for your dinner.
Sarah, it's been amazing. I found that really interesting.
Thank you.
And well, you're very clear on what you know, and also you admit what you don't know, which is also quite important because lots of people have lots of ideas, don't they?
Nutrition is a huge field, and this is something that I think we need to be so cautious about. There's loads of people on YouTube, on all of the social media channels that claim to know everything about nutrition. I've worked in this field for 25 years. I know about this much compared to what there is to know. So I would tell anyone listening, and to be really careful what you do take as evidence from social media regarding nutrition and food advice.
However, you have imparted great wisdom there, and I would definitely say that there are some pretty clear call-outs there. If Sarah's given us a great insight, I think, into what you know. Do take a look at the Zoe project. It's not the Zoe project, is it? What am I getting? It's just called Zoe, right?
It's called Zoe. We also have a podcast called Zoe Science and Nutrition, and that is with good scientists that you can trust, with good evidence, and lots of actionable practical tips as well.
Thanks ever so much for taking the time to talk to us. It's great. So do have a listen to that. Check out Zoe. You'll find it everywhere. Let me assure you, it's all pervasive, and it's a fantastic and really interesting way of looking at what you eat, how you live, that's personalised in a way that I think I've never experienced before. So thank you very much indeed for talking to us.
Thanks for getting me back on a bike.
Yes, well now you know what to do. Yeah, it's slightly harder when you take the stabilisers off, but Thank you very much indeed. Do like, share, comment and subscribe, and we'll be back with more off workouts content very soon. Thanks for now. Cheers now.